I'm Tom with the Tractor Rescue Ranch. You probably better speak up so that everybody can hear. Anyway, I'm Tom from the Tractor Rescue Ranch, and this to my right is my son James. James is a mechanical engineer, and he's going to help us out on some projects. And then to my left is, if everybody's been watching the channel, you know my friend Scott, and we just thought that we'd talk a little bit about some of our upcoming projects for this winter. We've got a lot of neat things planned that we'd like to get on film for everybody to watch. So a lot of the projects are Scott's, so I'll let him talk a little bit about what we're going to do.
Yeah, how we're going to help out with it.
Yeah. So I guess one of the things, my and Tom's relationship, it started out, one of the first videos we did, he came over, I'd bought that 90 horsepower, the CX90, and the guy told me everything ran, and I drove right past the dealer hauling it all the way up to here, and well, the PTO didn't run, so Tom helped me get the PTO clutch going, and that's where we started to get to know each other, and our world views and professional experiences were kind of similar, and we hit it off. And I don't have nearly the skill set that Tom has, and so Tom likes projects and I got no shortage of projects, so we've kind of become fast friends and partners in a lot of...
Yeah, you don't mention it took us pulling that clutch out of the CX90 3 times to get it right.
yeah, the diagram, we had the workshop manual, but it wasn't terribly insightful on how a lot of that worked, and it was our first. Anyways, so my family, we've got 120 acres, and it's kind of been, we sharecropped, and it needs replanted and reworked pretty bad. It's been 17 years, and we flood, and so we get this hard pan, right? Every La Nina cycle, every 7 years, we flood, and that creates this hard pan, and so that created an extra level of difficulty. So we did a lot of the videos in the fall of the tillage that we had to do, and in the spring we've still got to solve some of those problems, and so we've gotten together and came up with a group of ideas. And I guess when it comes to farming, to be long-winded for just a second, right? Economies of scale is the dominant factor when you're deciding how to make it so you don't lose too much money. And I'm an economist by training, and so we're trying to basically figure out ways to do things. One, it's fun because we've got a group that can do a lot of stuff, and two, we can't justify big capital expenditure. So we've got our projects to kind of help finish getting the field planted. And the first project that we're going to take on is the auto steer. So you've watched the 930 that we had, and it wasn't strong enough to pull a lot of the stuff that we did in our really hard soil, but now that we've got it broken up, we're hoping to employ it a little bit more. But there's a group called Ag Open GPS, and they've created the software, and they've kind of, it's a little bit confusing on how you install the auto steer, but we're working through that with James and Tom. We're gonna kind of custom put that onto the 930. That way when we get to doing the spraying, the seeding, we'll have auto steer so we can do it super efficiently with that 930. We're also going to put dualies on that 930, and that'll help us out a little bit. Some people talked about locking the differential. It doesn't have a locking differential, so and I couldn't find wheel weights for it. So the auto steer, we're going to start that process. Well, we're already started. We've got the tablet, we've got the software. We need to create a couple of components, and we've got some 3D printing that we're going to do with James.
That's where I'll come in on that one.
Do that, and then we got to do some fabricating mounts and things like that. So in the next couple weeks, we'll run you through the process of installing auto steer onto an older machine. The next project is the one that we've already started the other day, where we took the loader off that John Deere 400 we went to get. I keep calling that John Deere my skidster on with a 3-point PTO. because it's that industrial tractor, so it's lower to the ground. It's got a lower center of gravity than these row crop tractors, and it's got a lot more lifting capacity. And so when we get into some of my narrow paddocks, I've got rivers running both sides of my property, and they obviously don't go straight. So they bisect a lot of the property out. That tractor is going to be really useful in getting into some of those areas to do some of the things we want to do. So Tom's going to fill in the hole on the block. We're going to pull it apart, fill in the hole, rebuild the engine, look into the hydraulics, the transmission, and kind of do a soup to nuts. James is going to come in on that one because one of the things that we want to do on a lot of these old tractors is convert them over to quick attach.
Yeah.
So anything under 90 horsepower, we're going to do skid steer quick attach. Above that, I'm going to stick with the global attach, which matches my CX90. And we are, for any of the 8N fans, the 8N is going to get quick attach as well.
Yeah, I've got the basic 3D files for that.
So one of the things that we've done is we've started to set up the plasma cutter, the CNC plasma cutter. Tom did a video. There's going to be some more on that. We'd have that ready to go, but Amazon, due to strikes, I guess, our plasma torch is stranded in Aurora, Colorado. Amazon didn't transfer it to UPS, and so we're 2 weeks past the delivery date, and they keep telling me, well, you got to wait another week until you can file a claim. So we'll have the plasma torch. The first project we're going to do to show that off is roller baskets. So we're going to take that chisel plow, and because we're going to do so much, we're going to actually kind of go redo some of the springs on it. We'll redo the U-bolts on it, but we're going to attach roller baskets. Our speed, one of the benefits of some of this stuff is some of these developing countries, their engineering departments, their ag departments, to help local agriculture employ some of the technology that is used in the U.S. and in other developed countries. They've written some of the engineering papers that give the equations for, how big should your drum rollers be to how fast you're going to pull it, and some of the other aspects. So we're taking those engineering design papers. I'm kind of pulling out the equations, and James is going to kick those into CAD.
Yeah, I'll 3D model them up, and then we can get them set out for plasma cutting and fabrication.
And then we'll weld them up and get them attached. So that's going to be our first one. The next thing is going to be a pretty much quite a bit more in-depth project. We've decided I was going to buy an old cedar and just kind of use that, but because the way my property's set up, the flooding, and I've got a really high water table because I'm not very far off of the Bear River. So in truth, my property has three sides of it has river, and so my water table's really high. And so part of the problems when you see my dry fields is they shouldn't be. That's that hard pan is keeping the water from coming up. So we did what we could with the subsoiler. We didn't subsoil because we need deep roots like they do in the Midwest. All of our plants have shallow roots because it's mostly grass. The alfalfa has some deeper roots. But we subsoiled to try and get the groundwater coming up higher and getting more moisture into the upper layers. But I'm going to have to plant differently I've got 3 30-acre pieces. My lowest piece is pretty wet, and so we can't do any type of legume in there like an alfalfa. So we're going to put in Timothy, and then the upper half of my pivot we'll put in Sanfoin. I'm probably mispronouncing that, with orchard and possibly some early bloom Timothy. And then in my upper pastures, we couldn't get that subsoiler to sink in because that ground was just so hard. So we're going to employ some of the regenerative farming. And then in some of those, like I was mentioning, my little paddocks, which I can use for horse grazing, we're going to put the regenerative farming into there to break up that hard pan and try and get that soil working better. And so we need a seeder that will do all of that. And then we have other areas, other friends' projects that are similarly complicated that we're going to try and use it for that. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to build a cart. And you guys saw, people who've been watching, we went over to the Cottonwood and we grabbed some of their old stuff. One of those was an old disc that was in really bad shape, but it had an axle. So we're going to take that axle and some of those cart pieces and be able to build a cart for the air seeder. We're probably going to do it so that it can do both a diffuser for the small seed and also have some ability to plant larger seed a little bit deeper. But it's going to have 4 bins. Each one will have its own roller speed, so it can deploy seed at different, depending on what mix we want. It's also going to have ground sensing radar, which will drive those motors, so depending on whatever speed, it will adjust. And then we're right now thinking through different ways that we can do the plumbing. So if we want to do alt diffuser, we're not running a ton of hose differently versus if we need to mix and be able to bury some of the bigger seed a little bit lower and then diffuse some of the smaller seed as well. So we're still working on how that's all going to work out, but that'll be kind of our February project. I don't know if you guys have something you want to add.
That'll be a lot of 3D modeling for those cedar with drums and.
Yeah, that's going to take.
That's going to take full CAD work to get that figured out.
So the manifold, where all 4 of those different bins, so it'd be one bin, but they'll have 4 compartments, and each one will have its own roller speed. And then to plumb those, we'll all be we're going to be able to build the manifold in 3D printed. And then we'll have the motors, which will be run by Arduino controllers. So we're going to, similar to the auto steer, we're going to be pulling in a lot of electronics into how that works. So we're going to have kind of the fabrication. We're going to have the kind of CAD driven CNC cutting and whatnot, and then the guy who is the least skilled will just kind of do the parameter decisions. And then after that, so the air seeder, we're hoping to have that kind of ready. We're in this El Nino phase where we should be lighter than usual in the moisture, which means that, like our ground was so dry, a lot of it's not frozen under the snow because there was no moisture to freeze. So we may have an early spring where we could put some of the, especially like the regenerative, the stuff that's not going to be irrigated in soon. So we're hoping to have that air seeder set up for that. The next thing is I've got a sprayer, and we're just going to modernize it a little bit. We're going to add some Arduino components, so that way it's got ground sensing radar, so it can adjust the sprayer's amount based on how fast we're going. Build a little algorithm and something in CAD to control that. Then my baler, you guys saw I bought a 4570 last year. Again, one of the issues is we, as far as economies of scale, we have 60 acres under irrigation, but it's only putting out 1 ton per acre where it should be about 4 ton per acre. And so we've been trying to not spend very much money until we get our 4 ton per acre. So we've got that older baler, and we want to put some electronics on it to help us get a higher quality. We're mostly doing horse hay. So we're going to be able to spray we're going to build a sprayer to put the preserve that Case does. I guess everybody gets it from Harvest Tech preserve. But anyways, instead of buying the Harvest Tech sprayer, we're going to just we're going to mimic them. And we're also going to put on the moisture meter. We're going to make it so we can adjust the bell weight from the cab and a few things like that. And that's really going to take us through. We got a handful of other projects that we're thinking about, but those will be in the future. So.
Okay, well, on top of that, James had to move his machines out of his machine shop, and so we have moved them to my shop. And so we are putting together a really nice machine shop. It'll have a plasma table for a plasma cutter, a CNC plasma cutter. Yeah. And James has 2 milling machines, CNC milling machines,
Custom, redneck,
and-
homemade.
and lathes. Then between the 2 of us now, we have 5 lathes
Yeah.
of different sizes between the tabletop and up to a great big one. So we're going to have quite a machine shop set up there at my place, and so there'll still be a lot of sawmill videos. Hopefully, that shop I've got there is open on the south. You've all seen that, and so we're going to enclose that. So we need to mill a whole bunch of wood, and I still got work to do on the sawmill. So the sawmilling is something that I love, and we'll keep doing that. Other than that, the other main project I have is that Farm All M. Sometime later in the winter, I want to get it pulled into the shop after I get the shop enclosed and pull that thing apart and see if I can save it. That's part of the tractor rescue ranch, is trying to save this old equipment. So just in a nutshell, those are some of the projects that we're going to be working on and doing videos on, and a lot of you people that have been watching me kind of understand what we've been doing here, but just some of the things to push things forward and try to get these old tractors upgraded a little bit, learn how to upgrade them so that you can take an older tractor and put auto steer on it and bring some of the older tractors that we're saving into modern times. So that's kind of what we're planning on doing this winter. So look forward to some of these videos. We'll just keep the videos coming, and appreciate you guys all watching, and please continue to like and subscribe and pass them around.